Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you so much to join our insight sharing. Today we have our special guest, Chris. Hello, hi Chris, how are you doing today?
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much to join our show and share with us about your life and experience. It's going to be a lot of learning for our team here and our audience in Vietnam communities and globally. So thanks again for joining. So to begin up, would you please share with us about yourself and your work, Chris?
Yeah, so my work has been primarily the last 20 plus years running a business of fully remote employees and independent contractors. So I had 45 people that directly reported to me and another almost 4,000 people that worked across the country as independent contractors or employees. And so in 2009, I took everybody 100% remote. And so we went from running a traditional company to a fully remote company at a time when it wasn't something that people did. This was not a normal thing. And we really benefited from it. And so it was at that moment that I began to experiment. I began to try new things. We began to really learn and grow. And I decided we weren't going to have this boring, traditional company anymore. We were going to try new ideas and new innovations. And if it didn't work, okay. And we tried things that didn't work at all. But when we went remote and when we changed the culture, every one of my 45 employees that I, was managing called me within 2 weeks and said, "This is the best thing we've ever done. Please don't ever make us go back to what we were doing before." So I knew we were on to something. And so I spent the next, so many years running that company, being the fastest growing company 5 times, and got to the point where, after sort of exiting the pandemic, I thought, I've been here, I've done it, I'm a little tired. We've done everything we wanted to do. We've reached all the goals we ever set out, and I decided to sell the company. And so now my focus has been on doing a lot more consulting. I was always doing some, and a lot more keynote speeches. And so that's been an interesting transition for me this year to let people know I'm available for more. I could only do so many before. Now I'm like, I can do them all the time, and I can consult. So I have lots of consulting clients, lots of speaking gigs around the world. I was just telling Hag, I was just in Amsterdam and Brussels speaking. So that's probably the thing I love to do the most, is to speak to a large group of people or to work with a large group of people to help them transform their companies. And the last thing I'll say, and I'll shut up here for a second and let you catch up, but I think my favorite thing is to help good companies become great.
Wow.
To help companies that really care about being good. It's like there's not a whole lot of students who are failing in school that actually have a tutor. They probably need the tutor the most, but it's the kids who have B's or have A, that are doing pretty good. They're the ones who get tutors because they want to be at the top of the class. And that's who I enjoy working with.
Wow. Chris, thanks a lot for doing that, because Vivian and I I got a chance to talk to a lot of people who are not happy at work, right? So we understand the importance of create a culture, create a work, for the people, so that they can be happy and doing the job that they do. So when they go home, they be happy at home. And the dining table conversation, we have to build the next generations going to work and a happy workforce. So the work you do very important, and we examine that together tonight. Okay.
Sounds great.
Okay. First, because of you just sold your business, I want to know how you feel. How do you feel about that, though?
It's weird. I mean, when you think of yourself as the CEO of that company, and that company is, I don't know, it's a bit like when your kids move out. I mean, you're happy, but you feel a little weird about it at the same time, right? You're used to seeing them every day. You're used to being able to tell them what to do every day. So it's a good thing, but it's also taking a little time for me to get comfortable with the new normal. So yeah.
I think that because you're an expert in the culture, right? So the selection, the due diligence, everything you will do in a very good way to make sure that the culture is carried from good to great. So it's not going to be just jeopardized because you're not there. And you move into a transition into the next stage where your influence can be a lot bigger, a lot better. And I think that is benefiting for everybody in the larger picture. Uh, and allow us to carry you all the way to a very young version of Chris. Okay, when Vivian was young, she wanted to become a singer. When I was young, I wanted to become an astronaut, but neither of us become one. So when Chris was young, what did the young version of Chris wanted to be to become into to this world?
I wanted to be a marine biologist.
Marine
So
biologist.
yeah, I wanted to be out studying whales, spending my time with whales and dolphins, and then I discovered that A, they don't make very much money, and B, I get seasick pretty easily. So that was out the door. I couldn't do that job. But I mean, I love seeing whales. I love going whale watching, and they still fascinate me. But it wasn't going to be a practical endeavor for me.
So from the marine biologist, yeah, that is not something that practical for you. So how did you ended up into the corporate life? The world of work.
Yeah. Well, despite me wanting to be a marine biologist, if I go back even farther, I always had a lemonade stand. I was always finding ways to make money. I was doing things being entrepreneurial, even though I didn't know what that meant as a kid. We would have competitions at school to see who could sell the most magazines or wrapping paper or things to fundraise for the school. And I always wanted to be the number one, the top person, right? Who sold the most or who got an award for it or whatever the thing was. So when I look back, I was very entrepreneurial. People in my family, my grandfather, my uncle, other people in my family were very entrepreneurial, and I had a lot of good role models there. And even though I did some entrepreneurial things as I was going through school and just leaving school, I sort of for a moment took a little detour, and I was working for other people. And I learned a lot, and it was a good experience, and I'm happy that I did it. But I reflected on that and said I wasn't very happy during those times, and that was because I was working for other people, where essentially I was the cleanup man, right? It was my job to fix all of their problems and to fix all of their mistakes and to make things better, right? Or deal with angry clients when the client should never have been angry to begin with because of their bad policies or bad decisions. And so I realized I needed to go work for myself. Wow. And once I did that, then everything changed. And I realized how much happier I was working for myself.
But then, what was the courage you gave to yourself back then? Because you just graduated, you're just working for, for other companies for just a period of time is short, right? So a tendency is if some people will like, okay, I work and I accumulate enough experience, then I will go out and I can talk to people, I can sell solutions and stuff like that. So at that very young age, everything is very, very the foundation is not really solid, but then you were brave enough to start up to do the startup and been running it for 20 something years before you selling it, right?
Yeah, so it took a pretty big event to get me to change. So I got very comfortable with my life away from work. So I was maybe unhappy with work, but I made enough money to have a house. I made enough money to have a car. I mean, I had, responsibilities and bills and things that it was hard. Not only hard to have the courage to start your own business, but I also had bills to pay. Right. So leaving also meant that I could be really in trouble if I didn't make it. The pressure was on. Well, I was at the office watching the TV live when 9/11 happened in the United States.
Yeah.
when the airplanes flew, and it was that moment for me where I went, oh, life is short. We never know what's going to happen. We never know how long we're going to be here. And I realized I'm unhappy. I should not be here. I want to be running my own company. And it was, so that was September 11th. I, within a few days, had left. And by November 1st, I had started my company. Wow. So, it took a pretty big event in the world to get me to wake up and realize that I wasn't living my dream. I wasn't doing the things I needed to do. And, I would much prefer that event never happened and those people were still alive. But, that event did shape me in a lot of ways. It really helped kind of give me the motivation I needed to make a change.
Wow. And there's a lot of event happen into the world, like the pandemics, right? It happened, and business has to change the way they work and move into the remote work, and struggle here and there a lot, everywhere, in every country, every continent, right? But you, back in 2009, decided to run your company remotely, and people were so happy working, and they didn't want you to bring them back to the office. What happened back then, though?
Well, that was another big event. So in 2009 in the United States, we had a big recession. Oh. We jokingly called it the heart attack of 2009. It was huge changes in the mortgage industry. A lot of my clients were mortgage companies. And so not only were clients going out of business and not ordering, but they weren't paying their bills. And so I decided to take us remote for no other reason than to save money. I could save enough money to keep all of my people. I did not have to lay anybody off. I didn't have to let anybody go, despite us, losing about a third of our business overnight because of all this, financial troubles in the country. And we were able to keep everyone and begin to rebuild, and we came out, ahead. Now, I discovered, like I said, about 2 weeks later, that remote work was this secret weapon to being more effective and having employees be happier and getting more work done. And so we began to build off of that. But originally, I just did it to save money. Oh. And I thought, well, maybe we'll come back in a year or 2 years. We'll come back in an office again, right? When we don't have to save the money anymore. And that was off. And it was funny when my employees called and said they're so happy. I kept telling them, I'm happy too. I get it. No one's knocking on my office door 20 times a day to come and talk to the boss. I had time to get work done. I had big blocks of time I was so much more effective. It was, with my time, and I didn't have to stay at the office for really long hours because I wasn't chit-chatting with people all the time.
Chris,
I think one of the issue,
go ahead,
for the remote now is about trust. And starting 2009, that trust already there for your group and your people to work independently. So how do you build that culture back then to connect people with the work that they need to be done? And now we're in 2022. That's still an issue to be decided, hybrid or remote, and challenges to be remote, stuff like that. Yeah.
So, listen, I mean, this is the trust factor is always something that comes up. And I think there's two ways to look at this. If you have bad employees to begin with, you're going to have a problem anyways. If you have to worry that your employees are not working, guess what? They're not working at the office either. I mean, they're on their phones and they're playing video games, or they're not doing. I mean, if you have those types of people in your company, if they're not motivated, if they're not enabled, if they're not being managed properly, it doesn't matter where they are. They're not going to be doing work. So if going remote is the only change, excuse me for 1 second. If going remote is the only factor, That's not what's going to suddenly cause a good employee to just sit on the couch and not work anymore. This is silly, right? The other way to look at this is, I always say, what you focus on grows. So where you put your focus, where you put your energy, what you think about, what you talk about, what you get your people to think about and talk about, that's what gets bigger. That's what grows. So if you're running around your company saying, I don't know if people are going to work, I don't know if I can trust them, can I trust you? Can I trust them? Guess what? They're like, you don't think you can trust me? Well, I'm going to show you, right? You're gonna do things to see if I'm really working. You're gonna install something on my computer, or you're gonna make me, log in or some way every 10 minutes. I mean, you're gonna do something because you don't trust me. Then I'm not going to be trustworthy. Employees will act like teenagers. If anyone out there has had a teenager, if you push on them the wrong way, they immediately just, will stop and not do anything just because they're a teenager. Right? I mean, it's a very irrational. Employees can be that way if you push on them the wrong way. So if what we focus on is, how do I help you be more productive? How do I help you get your job done? How do I help you in this new remote world? What support do you need? Do you need a better computer? Do you need a flexible schedule so that you can manage your family and when kids come home and all that? Like, what do you need so I can help you be your best, right? People will become their best. And that's it. And of course, there's going to be somebody along the way who's a bad employee, who isn't trustworthy, who is a problem, and we should fire them. This is what we're supposed to do. If they're no good, you get rid of them, and you don't punish all of the other employees who are awesome just because you have one bad person who needs to go.
With that, Chris, it seems like the managers and the leader has a lot of initial works to talk to the employees individually, to ask whether or not what is it that they need to do, what that they need to help with, and it seems like overwhelming them with additional tasks that they already have at hand. Now have to accompany these individual needs for success. Remote working. Is there any better way for leaders and managers can implement? They still can deliver that, but it's less time consumed for them if they want to transfer into the whole remote work. In your opinion?
So one of the best things that leaders can do is to stop having so many one-on-one meetings. I think that you should have almost no one-on-one meetings. Now, sometimes there's an issue, a sensitive issue, and you need to talk to them, of course. Sometimes it's a training, maybe they're a new employee, okay. But during the regular work, on a regular week, a regular day, if you're constantly meeting with your people one-on-one, you are exhausted. You can't get your own work done. Information moves very slowly across the organization, especially in a remote organization, right? Because we can't bump into people in the hallways. I can't bump into you when I'm getting coffee or tea and find out what's been happening or what's going on. So you have to change your framework to, we need to get together as a group more often in shorter meetings. So I'm not saying suddenly start having hour-long meetings all the time with your team. I'm saying 15 minutes. Could you start off the day with a 15-minute meeting? Hey, what's everybody working on? What's going on? And 15 minutes, we're not talking very long. Just tell me what you're working on. Where do you need help today? You need help with that? Cool. Me and Johnny will connect with you later and we can help you with that problem, right? And maybe it's 15 minutes at the end of the day, or maybe it's a 30-minute meeting every other day or once a week or whatever it is, and we talk about the goals as a group, right? Instead of the manager being the only person who's responsible for making sure people are achieving their goals, why not make the whole team responsible to each other, right? So it's Ha's goal to do this, it's Vivian's goal to do that, and we're all going to help each other reach our goals, and we're all going to support each other to get there, and we're all going to talk about we're tired, or we just got that great account, or our kid was sick and up all night and we're exhausted. I mean, we're all going to like talk and empathize together as a group, right? And help each other move forward. And that's how great organizations work, right? It's not boss and employee. It's not this. This is not the relationship anymore. And this is not just from remote work. Scrum and Agile, Kaizen, and all these, and Lean, and all these other systems that we have seen companies adopt to have great success rely on group and team communication as the primary driver of success. And so we need to take those lessons and bring them into your remote environment.
Wow. Vivian and I just talked to two experts in the field of culture and leadership development about an hour ago, and with that you just shared, there seems to be a lot of power release, from the leaders, right? For them to feel, to release the power, the comfortability of holding off onto what they've been knowing, and then so that they can lead the team differently. Am I correct?
Yes. So probably the best way I can maybe explain this, and I hate to use sports when talking to an international audience, but it could be any sport. But think about the highest level of sport. It could be lacrosse, it could be soccer or football, it could be baseball, it could be anything. At the highest level, does that manager, does that coach act the same way as they would if you were teaching a child, right? The role of the coach helping a child learn how to play baseball is far different than when you're at the professional level, right? How much control does that coach have when you have some of the best players in the world doing what they're doing? They don't have the same control. It's about conversation. It's about a shared goal and a shared vision. And yes, the manager does make some of those tough decisions. But when you're dealing with really good people, highly trained, well-skilled, highly motivated people, it's not about control. It's not about power. That this is the old industrial revolution, put people on an assembly line type of a mentality, right? That I have to have power and control over you to get you to do what I need you to do. And back then they did need that, and they were really retraining people on how to work, when to work. There was a whole change in philosophy about how people live their lives. We don't need that anymore. Now what we need to be is coaches, therapists, good listeners, right? People are well-trained, well-educated. They are good at their job. They don't need me to have power over them. They need me to help them clear away all the junk, help them make better decisions so they can get their jobs done.
Absolutely. Wow. Chris, you've been running the remote works for over a decade now, right? And then with a lot of success. And it seems like around the world, businesses, organizations start to bring people back to the office. That create a lot of tension between employer and employees. And where do you see the whole movement of remote work going forward?
So, not remote work isn't going to be for everyone. I mean, we saw that it could be for most people. I mean, there was even jobs I was shocked that they were able to make remote, even like bank tellers and things like this. I mean, it was pretty amazing at how far they were able to take it. But that pendulum, swung all the way over here, and it's going to swing back. There's going to be some adjustment back. Some jobs, are naturally going to be in an office. But I think what's important, there will be companies that are remote first, 100% remote. And I think they're going to be far more innovative, and they're going to have a bit of a superior, a bit of a leg up. They're going to have an advantage in the industry if they're fully remote, right? But for those that aren't, if they're going to allow flexible work, hybrid work, this is a tool that companies can take advantage of and employees can take advantage of to have a better outcome. The simplest way to think about this is if a parent has to take a day off because their child is sick, that company loses an entire day of productivity from that employee. But if they're willing to allow them to work from home that day, because the child doesn't really need to be, they're going to sleep all day, they're going to be in bed, they're not really going to need a whole lot of attention, they can still work for most of the day.
Yep.
That's a far better outcome for the employee and the company. So allowing flexible work, I think this is going to be the big outcome for companies, allowing them to do that. Allowing an employee who wants to go visit their parents far away, and so they can allow them to work remotely for a week or two, right? But maybe they're not going to be in the place they're going to be. Maybe somebody is in a very bad marriage and they need to leave that, right? Do they take that time off, or are they immediately able to work because they could go to their friend's house or their parents' house and leave that maybe abusive spouse or something, and they can continue working? There's so many advantages for both people to allow flexible work when their life changes in a way, because otherwise they were taking days off or quitting their jobs.
Yep.
And that's not the best outcome. So I think that the more flexible we can be with people, the better off both employee and the company will be.
And that also what I believe too. So the hybrid model is going to be the model that's going to last and work well for employer and the employees and head into the future, right? Chris, I have two more questions that I would like to ask you, and the first question is always about thinking, because Vivian and I we are in the quest of seeking for the secret source from the thinkers, the people the expert who thinks and do amazing things. So you do a lot of works, and your works requires you to do a lot of big thinking, and we want to ask you, how do you help yourself to expand your ability to think, Chris?
Well, so I think, early on what I did is I read a lot of books and I talked to a lot of people and asked them the same questions. I think this is really important, to come up with a list of a few questions that you think are really important, and then ask a lot of people who you think are really smart or really accomplished, that maybe have done or farther along in their journey or their career than you are, and find out their answers, right? And I would say now I spend a lot of time and I learn a lot by being a mentor to people. I still read a lot of books, but I now find I learn a lot by mentoring people and finding out their new way of thinking or seeing their new perspective. And then I kind of change my perspective. So I went from learning from mentors to now I feel like I'm learning from mentees as well, often, and what they're seeing. But I'll give you a quick example of that way of thinking. I asked about 100 people who were big authors, big thought leaders, big CEOs of very large company. I mean, they were very highly successful people. I would find a way to come and ask them a question or two at a conference or something before they ran off, And I always ask them, should I be worried about my weaknesses? Should I be thinking about getting better at what I'm weak at? And they always told me, 100 out of 100 told me, yes, I should. My follow-up question was, but do you do that? And 99 out of 100 said no.
Any reason for that?
And the reason was society tells us we're supposed to be working on being better at our weaknesses. This is something that, at least in America, this is something we hear all the time. You should be trying to, get better at these things. And it's a part of a cultural thing of, you need to work out more, you need to do this more, you need to always be trying to improve, because there's something they want to sell you to help you improve, right? It's a thing. But there's this idea that we're supposed to focus on our weaknesses. But the most successful people do not focus on their weaknesses. They focus on their strengths. They know what they're good at, and they leverage that. And that's what they sell. That's what they deliver. They know what they're strong at. And anything that they're weak at, they outsource it. They hire somebody else. They give it to somebody else. Somebody else handles the thing that they feel like they're not good at, or does not give them energy, that feels like that's draining. So you asked me to do your books, like your accounting. I could do it, but I would hate every moment of it, right? So I shouldn't be doing that kind of work. Even though I could do it, it's not something that gives me joy. I should never be doing that. And I realized in my business, I was doing the books. I was doing the accounting, even though I hated it, because I just didn't, we want to spend the money on that. I could do it. I got rid of that and was like, I was filled with so much more energy and time to do things that I love to do. I was hating all of that, right? So it was a really interesting lesson that, when you talk to people who are highly successful and you kind of, pick their brains and figure out what they really do, not what they say, but what is it they actually do, and can you replicate that in your own life?
Wow. Thanks for sharing that, Chris. It's interesting that 100% of them say yes, that they need to improve their weaknesses, but then 99% of them say they're not doing a damn thing about that, right?
Right.
Yep. And I'll ask the last question of this conversation is about you. And so we knew, your past, we knew what you're doing now. And I would love to also knowing what is that exciting Chris is about to do that you want to share with Vivian, with me, and the audience, so we can celebrate with you in advance.
What is it I want to do, like in the future?
Yeah, is there anything exciting in the near future that you are about to introduce and you want to share with us now?
Well, I've been sort of spending this year reflecting on what I really want to be doing in the next few years. And so I have a lot of keynote speeches and consulting and trainings coming up next year. I'll be in lots of different fun places around the world. So I think what I would love is to be spending more time in Asia.
Yeah.
So maybe I don't have anything that for sure yet. So maybe I'll just put this out there. That'll be a goal that I wanted to get up, maybe even to Vietnam, when I get over there to make that happen, to do a speech or to do a consulting thing. I have an online course on my website, and I've written 2 books, and I don't know if I want to write another one, at least not next year. Maybe I need another year away from all of the deadlines and hectic things before I get talked into that. So I think it's going to be a year of really talking about the future of work, right? The future of work is changing and has changed. And I think that's still a really exciting topic that will be on people's minds.
Absolutely. I think that there's more than ever the uncertainty about the future of work is in the question stage again, and there will be a lot of companies that we need your advice and your expertise to come in and help them to redefine what is working means for everybody, redefine what the culture is supposed to be that can fit in for everybody, and redefine the purpose of the organization also. So Chris, we thank you for joining to our show, and we would love to see you in Asia, especially in Vietnam, if that could be. Vivian and I will be so happy to take you around town and show you to our, the beauty of our country. Okay.
Fantastic.
Alrighty. Have a wonderful day, and thanks a lot for joining our show. Today is a World Gratitude Day, so we said, I'm grateful for you to spend your time and to join our show.
Thank you both.
You have a nice day. Thank you, Vivian, too. Bye-bye.